Man, liking things on the internet can be so exhausting. Our videos get hate comments from both sides. Some people saying I'm too much of a WotC shill, and others claim I don't love D&D enough. Somehow we've managed to anger both groups at the same time. I wonder what would happen if those commenters got in a room together and they talked to each other, and maybe they'd realize that things aren't as simple as loving something or hating it. Welcome to Mystic Arts. My name is Daði. I'm a professional writer and director, and I've been DMing for 10 years. Every time we upload a video and I share tips on how to spice up combat or anything else in the game, someone inevitably shows up to tell me that D&D is bad, and I should feel bad for liking it, or that all my problems would be solved if I played the perfect system. Oddly enough, those people can't seem to agree on which system is perfect. Or maybe if I were a bit less cynical, they're really just excited about the breadth and variety of amazing games out there, and they're disappointed I'm not talking about them. But they're not the games I play, and I feel like I should be talking about the stuff I play and the stuff I'm engaged with. Loads of those people seem to assume that I don't know those games exist, but I do. And they all look incredible. I've even bought some of them, and a lot of the times I go pick them up at my friendly local game store and I look at the price tag and I decide maybe next month, maybe when I have time to actually play them, or when I'll be able to go read the rules and actually get introduced to a new system. But the thing is, I know I'm not going to run them. And it's not due to a lack of interest, but because I already have a full plate. And frankly, I'm already enjoying myself. I'd love to play those games at a convention or something, and I regularly get swept up in the excitement of getting to learn a new system or a new set of rules, especially if they're from independent creators. I support a ton of them financially, back their Patreons or buy their books, and I do plan to play them when I get the opportunity. But there's a catch, and more on that in a second. Let's get a little bit of perspective first. To be honest, I've been debating whether or not to make this video for a while now, basically ever since we started the channel, but I really wanted to share my perspective a little bit. I started with 1st edition Pathfinder back in 2014, and after a few years my group was pretty exhausted by feat trees and math bloat, and we decided to switch to a new system. 5e was relatively new at the time, Volo's guide was already out, and Xanathar's guide was just around the corner, I think like a few months later. And we had a lot of fun. We were so excited to swap to a new edition. I basically became one of those super consumers or whales. I'd buy all the books physically and digitally just because I wanted to support the game I loved and the game I was playing. I think a lot of people forget that early 5e was developed by basically a skeleton crew. Even today, D&D's design team is tiny compared to video game studios or other major media that we engage in. So I supported them when I could. And not just them, I bought third-party books, I supported creators on DM's Guild, on Patreon, and I spent way too much money on this hobby. That's kind of why I started this channel, just to sort of justify all the money I'd been spending. And when Pathfinder 2nd edition launched, we all went and looked into it, and we saw the same kind of overcomplicated crunch that we'd already kind of gotten burnt out on. Feat trees, floating modifiers, we just really didn't want to deal with that again. And it really sucks because Paizo is, I think, kind of the best example for what an RPG company should be like. The orc system, the consumer support, the SRD, there are a million reasons to like everything Paizo's doing, and I'm so ready to fall in love, but for some reason, that system doesn't appeal to me. I know it appeals to a lot of other people, but the way I play the game, I don't think I'm the right fit. Which, frankly, really sucks. But I was having a lot of fun in 5e, so I saw no reason to change. And then the OGL thing happened. That entire debacle was gross and ridiculous, and I was furious, like properly militant. I was ready to homebrew my own system from scratch, basically like a 5e clone, not unlike Tales of the Valiant, the Black Flag role-playing game, or the many other systems that were announced at the same time. Systems I'd love to try one day, Daggerheart and Draw Steel. I cannot wait to give those systems a go. And during the OGL thing, my entire gaming group, a Discord consisting of some 30 or 40 people, cancelled their D&D Beyond memberships. We wanted to show with our wallets how we felt about the OGL. And then WotC eventually capitulated. The SRD was permanently enshrined in Creative Commons, and 5.24 is set to join it. And at that point, I felt like the community won. The community managed to prove to the executives that we control the game. D&D is a folk hobby, and it cannot be controlled by executives in suits. We own it. At that point, a lot of folk felt like bridges had been burned permanently. They left 5e forever, and I completely understand why. Others decided to stick to their old books and never buy anything new, and that also makes sense to me. But for me personally, the OGL crisis, or whatever we want to call it, solidified this idea that the community owns the game. WotC can't control it. They can try, but they will never be able to. No matter what they do, D&D belongs to us. And I'm willing to bet, even though we can't really know what's going on internally, that the designers were with the community the whole time. The C-suite and the designers were fighting it out, and when it came time to send somebody on an apology tour, it was Kyle Brink and not Jeremy Crawford. And you best believe that when the executive suite comes up with these ideas, the design team can point and say, by the way, you tried this with the OGL, with whatever, and the community won. When the role-playing community canceled their memberships and they voted with their wallet, we managed to prove that we can do sort of whatever, and this hobby belongs to us. And we also empowered the designers, the nerds at the company, who actually are fantastic role-playing nerds. We empowered them to take that debate and back it up with facts. The community won't stand for that again, right? So I like this game. I like the designers making it. I think they're doing a fantastic job. And I know a lot of people feel like that means I'm a WotC shill, even though I'm not. I've never had any contact with anybody there, and I just made a video talking shit about D&D Beyond for quite a while, and I've got plenty of gripes about it, but this is the game I play. And when I go online and I say I like this game, that's not moving the needle for Hasbro. So I might as well be honest about it. And besides, I use the term D&D to mean fantasy role-playing game. I don't value the brand, I value the hobby. Corporations hate it when their brand name becomes a generic trademark. Think Band-Aid, Kleenex, Hoover. Once a brand name becomes too commonly associated to refer to all products in a certain category, the trademark loses legal power. In my ideal world, D&D becomes a generic trademark. I know we're not there yet, and maybe we'll never get there, but that's why I talk about it that way. So what's the catch? Why don't I play more games? Well, there's a few reasons. First, all my campaigns exist in the same world. I run a Marvel Cinematic Universe style of game. I want crossovers, I want interconnectivity. That means my adventures need to conform to the same rule set, give or take minor tweaks. My players and I visit that alternate reality several times a week. We live our lives there. We don't want to visit it any less. That world is ours, not WotC's. And once we're engaged in our sort of collaborative storytelling, the system becomes secondary. I cannot overstate how little 5e or D&D factors into my game and the game we play at my table. So because we want to visit that world as much as we can, we're already doing it several times a week, we are not interested in reducing the number of sessions we play in that world, and by extension in that system, 5th edition. But sometimes we want to play a new system, so we have to add a session per week, or per month, or whatever we're doing to try new things. And we do that. And when we do, it's always additive. Which basically means if I'm going to play a new game, it needs to be compelling enough to be my 4th or 5th game that week. So a lot of the times I'm hesitant to try new systems just because it would mean that I'd be playing a whole lot of RPGs that week. Simple as. But there's a second catch, and this one people find difficult to believe, but I like 5th edition. I really like it. A lot of the times when I'm reading alternative systems, I come up on something and I think that is needlessly complicated, or I wish this were more rigorous. And I find myself comparing it to 5th edition, which I like. I like Advantage, I like the class system, I like the way you get a little bit of bonuses from your species, but mostly you get it from leveling up. I like magic items and XP, I like goblins, mind flayers, I like beholders. I think all those things are fun. I like heroic fantasy, I like fantasy role-playing. I like starting at level 1 and death is around every corner, and I like ending at level 20 where we can kill God. I like the breadth and size and scale, I like the promise that I can play for several years. 5e really appeals to the kind of game I play. Matt Colville has described it as being sort of like oatmeal, like it doesn't really have any flavor and you kind of have to add it yourself. And I think there's some truth to that, and I like having one campaign be one kind of flavored oatmeal and another campaign being another kind of flavored oatmeal. And I like then taking those two campaigns and then mixing them together in a kitchen sink where they happen in the same place. So I like 5e, I like their overall design approach. A lot of people reasonably then go ask, how come you complain about it so much? How come in your reviews you go talk badly about this mechanic or you complain about D&D Beyond for 15 minutes? Why are you so nitpicky? And I think the truth is, you can only nitpick something you're a fan of. When I really dislike something, I just don't talk about it. There are systems out there that I think are gross, that I think have disgusting mechanics in them. I'm not going to give them airtime on my YouTube channel. There are systems out there that I think are interesting, and I wish I knew more about, and I might mention them in a video, or maybe I'll avoid mentioning them because I don't want to get anything wrong. If you do writing professionally and you send off your script to your editor, and your editor brings you back one note, your heart sinks because you know that note's gonna say, oh, I really don't get it. Or, why did you write this story? Or, what is this story about? But if you send your script off to your editor and your editor brings you back 80 notes, 100, 1,000, you know the editor's going in there and pointing out this little inconsistency and this tiny little spelling error and so on. But they wouldn't have pointed out the spelling errors if they think the feedback you need to hear is start over. The more granular the nitpick, the more people like the thing they're nitpicking. And if I truly didn't like something, I wouldn't waste energy talking about it. Love is what drives nitpicking. Otherwise, I wouldn't waste any energy on it. If I ever stop complaining, that's the sign I've checked out. And the same applies to you if you're running a game, by the way, or if you're writing a system. If you get loads of tiny little notes, but there is a lot of them, you might feel your heart sink. I got so much feedback, everybody hates me. Well, no. If they're giving you lots of feedback, that means they think you really are just that close to being perfect. If you know everybody had a bad time and nobody's willing to talk about it, your next solution should be to try something drastically different. Now, if you don't like 5th edition, or you don't like specifically the new 2024 rules, or you prefer Pathfinder or OSR or whatever, I still think most of the videos on this channel can help you. I think there are still 8 different types of combat you can run in Pathfinder or OSR, or any game that's about fighting. I think the 5-room dungeon story structure video can apply to any game with 5-room dungeons, or dungeons at all. I think our video on exploration, and how to highlight objects so that the players know what the interactables in a room are, if you're trying to beat up that silence that happens when you say, what do you do? I think you can solve that in any game, especially if you're playing Call of Cthulhu. If you're playing a Call of Cthulhu game and you walk into a room and you describe a handful of objects for the players to interact with, they don't have to interact with those items. Maybe they'll ask about something else, but at least now you've immediately killed the silence that happens when you ask, what do you want to do? I think that's advice that works anywhere. And I try and make sure that most of the stuff we talk about on this channel works for you if you're playing role-playing games or just engaged in art generally. So I guess all this is to say that I like the game I'm playing, and I think it's basically a faux hobby, and if I didn't want to spend another nickel on it, I could stop. And frankly, I spend way less on it than I used to. I am not a super consumer of the brand anymore. I think irreparable damage was done, and to a certain degree, I'm more skeptical than I ever was, but this is still the game I like playing. And just because some executives decided to do dumb shit doesn't mean I'm going to stop liking the game I'm playing with my friends. Because I don't need to pay them another nickel. I own the books, and a bunch of them are free online anyway. And what isn't free, you're going to be able to get by creating your own, or buying from third-party creators, or whatever. It doesn't matter. The whole thing is made up anyway. You can just play it. And if you want to go support other creators and play other systems, I encourage you to do so. I'm not here to stop you or tell you that my way is better than yours, or just because I like this system, you have to too. Absolutely not. Just go play whatever you want to play. And remember that you own the products. If you go buy something or whatever, then you own it. You can do whatever you want with it. You don't need to be bought into a system. You don't need to be subscribed to a service. You can just engage in the folk hobby of, and what do you want to do next? That's what the game's about. That's what this whole hobby is about, and it's kind of beautiful. So the next time I see one of those comments calling me a shill, or saying that I'm not shilling enough, I know I've made this video. And if you're not one of those people, sorry, I don't know what you got out of this. Having said all that, I really get tempted into other systems all the time, usually by awesome Kickstarters or projects I see on the internet that make me go, oh my god, I really want to try that, and I decide to carve out some time for it. This happened recently when fellow Dungeon Tuber Indestructiboy launched his Kickstarter for Vagabond. Due to recent changes to tariffs in the United States, the Kickstarter has been severely affected, so Terran's launching a second Kickstarter to get the first one through the finish line. If you don't feel like playing 5th edition and you want to try an OSR-style game, I recommend checking out Vagabond. Terran is an incredible designer, and the art in this by Maxwell looks amazing. Definitely do yourself a favor, click the link in the description and go check it out. That's where we'll pick it up next time. Thanks so much for watching this video. This channel is run by me and my girlfriend, and if you want to support us, consider becoming a channel member, or you could join our Patreon. For the Adept tier of this month, we have a whole new class, the Warlord. Experience being the ultimate full martial support character. You'll make your teammates better by making tactical decisions in the heat of battle with your orders and maneuvers. And if that doesn't appeal to you, that's alright. If you're feeling especially generous, you could instead like the video, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when we release new videos. Until next time, keep studying the mystic arts.